Hi, everyone. Welcome to the final welcome hangout of the 2015 Best Practices for Youth Conference, sponsored by the Alliance for Positive Youth Development. I'm Tanara Bailey, President and CEO of the SISTI Group, and we have a great team of the planning team here today that are going to join me for this hangout and conversation around the conference. We've had 3 days. We started on Monday with the discussion around our Youth for Change Day and the curriculum that you can use. Yesterday and Tuesday, we had 2 days worth of workshops. And so we're going to talk a little bit about what you've missed if you haven't been attending the conference and our takeaways so far. And then we'll talk a little bit about what to expect over the next couple of days or the next couple of hours. I'm off what I'm saying, obviously. The question of the day is, what are some ways your organization, school, or community are making safe and welcoming spaces for LGBT youth? What have you done to empower your staff and participants to be strong allies? Very current conversation and an important topic, I think, for youth programs to be thinking about. And you can join that conversation with the hashtag APYDCON on Twitter, so on Facebook, on Google Plus, anywhere you'd like. We'll be following that hashtag on all social media. So I want to take a moment to allow the others that are with me today to introduce themselves. You might have met most of them in previous Hangouts, but we'll do a new introduction. So why don't we start with Tim, since you're the new person in the Hangout, just your name, where you are, and your maybe a little bit about what you've done so far to help with the conference.
My name is Timothy Oldani. I am out of the Cleveland, Ohio area. I've been on the marketing and registration team, just helping with getting ready the Eventbrite registration site, the conference website, and working with some really talented other interns that have helped push out some great content. Vanessa Reiser, Charmaine Morgan, and Christian Kelly. They've all been great. I know you've maybe interfaced with some of them thus far. And I've been fortunate and had to have the great opportunity to be with them, and then even the rest of the interns here at the SISTI Group. It's been a good opportunity. The APYD conference is something that didn't know what it was to start off with, but now that I know, it seems like a great opportunity. It's really engaging, the networking, the opportunities, just the learning and expanding my horizons on just different things that maybe I just didn't reach out and touch or be exposed to before. I feel definitely more enriched, more well-rounded, and I'm just excited about moving forward, just the things that may come. So SISTI Group's been a great internship, and the APYD conferences has been a great opportunity altogether. So good to be here. Glad to see everyone. Look forward to see what happens at the capstone.
Great introduction, Tim. So who would like to follow that? Charmaine, do you want to go next, since you're next?
Sure. I'm Charmaine Morgan. I'm in Orange, New Jersey. I with marketing and registration. I have the ability to work on the website as well as do some content as far as the commercial, as well as work on some of the flyers that you may have seen going around. I just had an awesome time working over these last 6 months with Tim and Christian and Vanessa, trying to market and register and get everyone to come here for these last 3 days, and I hope that you've been able to have a good time.
Great. Thanks, Charmaine. And Katie?
Hi, I'm Katie Hussey-Sloniker, and I'm a SISTI intern in San Juan, Puerto Rico. I have been working with Andrea, one of my colleagues here on the screen, Jimmy, as well as another intern, Jessica, on the Youth for Change Day website, as well as curriculum and event that was to happen on Monday the 3rd of August as the kickoff event. And I definitely agree with Tim and with Charmaine. Everything associated with organizing this event has been a great learning experience. Learned a lot of information, a lot of skills that I didn't think that I could learn how to do. And now I know how to manage and organize online events. I think this has been a great opportunity, and I've truly enjoyed all the workshops as well. A lot of additional information that's been outstanding.
Great. And Christian?
I am Christian Kelly. I'm part of the Marketing and Registration Committee. I am today coming from the oldest township in Massachusetts, Lancaster, so that's a point of interest right there. I've been a part of all of the workshops. I'll have to miss a couple today, but I'm excited to watch them later on the convenience of the conference website. So, yeah.
Great. Thanks, Christian. And Andrea, it seems like you've gone last in every of these Hangouts, but that does not mean anything about your importance to the planning effort. So if you want to just really quickly introduce yourself as well.
Good morning. I'm Andrea Summerlin, coming to you from the beautiful coastal town of Walport, Oregon. I, too, was on the Youth for Change Committee with Katie, Jessica, and Jimmy, and that was an exciting event that we planned for Monday. This whole event and conference has really pushed me beyond my comfort zone, and I've learned a lot, and I've really enjoyed working with the other interns and with Miss Bailey.
Great. You know, it's funny because as you all were introducing yourselves, it made me kind of reflect on not only is the conference accessible from everywhere, but even the planning committee has been everywhere, from Puerto Rico to Oregon. You all have been working together through time zone differences and other things. So to think that not only can you access the content no matter where you're working, the team who's planned this has done exactly what we're asking people to do, participate completely online. And so it's a really great to kind of see it come full circle as you all did your introduction. So we've had several days of content, and you know, an online conference can be a little bit of an unknown. I think for most of you, you had never attended anything like this prior to beginning planning, or maybe you've attended a webinar, but not necessarily a combination of 6 or 7 over a course of several days. Now that we're kind of on the other side of it, what has been kind of your biggest learning or kind of takeaway from the past couple of days or the overall event? Oh.
Yeah. I'll go. I was going to just say that I think the amount of work that goes in behind the scenes to plan one of these conferences is, I didn't realize how much coordination and collaboration and just teamwork and, you know, follow through and everything like that it takes just to put on, you know, a 3-day, 4-day conference. So I would say that's been a real eye-opener for me.
Mm-hmm. And I think, you know, one of the things people kind of think with online events that they might be easier than in-person events, and I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think there's differences, but they each present their challenges, and I think in some ways, I spent a lot of my career planning place-based events, and you kind of can problem solve as you go in a way that you can't in an online event, that I think makes it a little even maybe more challenging than that. So yeah, I agree with you, Andrea. The behind the scenes, we make it seem a little seamless, but it's a lot more challenging on the other side. Others?
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, again, I've planned a lot of place-based events, like you said. And for me, the thing that I've really taken away from this whole planning process is how, I guess, liberating and free it is to be in an online event. I mean, really the accessibility, you know, I could be on my mobile phone and watch some of the coursework yesterday, or I could, you know, finish up with the class that I know I had to participate in and 15 minutes log in and see a session. So, you know, again, it was convenient. You know, there were low barriers to getting in. You know, just had to make sure I had my connectability and some type of device. So again, I found that kind of liberating to be able to say I can participate and learn in anything that is convenient to how I live and work.
Yeah, I think, you know, I mentioned this yesterday in the Hangout that there's this kind of barrier for many small organizations to having their whole staff go to a conference or their whole staff go to a training, or, you know, when you come back, you're inundated with the black hole of email that has waited for you while you were at this great conference and event. And again, not to take anything away from those types of conferences, because I think there's some benefits to them as well. But I think when you're looking at scaling and trying to get the most opportunities for professional development for your staff, being creative and innovative and thinking outside the box about how can they just attend a workshop for an hour and we can immediately start to put those things into action. Or if everyone isn't available at the same time, I think scheduling meetings is probably one of the most frustrating tasks when you have a large team. Trying to get everybody in the same place at the same time is a challenge. And so allowing people to, like Katie said, you can be there for the live event, but we really tried to make this information available past the day. So the Conference Access website, it stays there forever. If you went to the Conference Access website today, you would see the conference from 2012 and the conference from 2013. There's never any kind of really learning loss. You can constantly see these best practices, which is such a great resource. Because so often I've been to many really great trainings and I'm excited and energized, and then I get back and I try to look at my packet and notes and things, and I cannot remember what the speaker said because it's just frazzled in between my brain. But if I could go back 6 months later and watch the webinar again, I would be re-inspired or reignited on that topic. And so that's the hope, is that, you know, this is a great week, but it's really a lifelong kind of learning experience that we're trying to create. Others?
I kind of get the perspective of just how much realistic practicum, like the real life just experience that you get from the whole thing, just because I feel like these types of conferences and engagement, the virtual digital engagement, that's where most agencies and organizations and even just the entire industry of, you know, the social realm is trending towards, because it is more convenient and it is just more practical, and that's just in a global world, that's how people connect on a global spectrum, is you have to do it through these virtual peripherals. So it's good practicum, but then just like you talked about with the place-based events and how, you know, the coordination of that is much different, and there's a level of difficulty that comes with trying to do it on a virtual. It's because it's not tangible. When there's a problem on a place-based event, it's there, it's in front of you, and most of the stakeholders are around to plan and brainstorm. Whereas when something falls apart in this realm, usually it's a technology-related incident, and then you're isolated. And so what I've found is that it really brings about a great deal of introspection, to where you can just in that moment just be within yourself and just of yourself and like brainstorm with just yourself. So you're really pulling on all your own faculties. You know, you're drawing on just what you have in that moment. So it forces you to be a bigger person, and it forces you to have, you know, more strengths, and it forces you to really employ those strengths. So I feel like it makes us better people all around, because anytime there's adversity, when you're alone, you have nothing but yourself and your abilities to pull on. And then you have to realize, well, how do I reach out and connect with people? How do I network right now? What's at my disposal? What can I connect with? So you can start emailing, you know, tweeting, getting a separate IM session going with somebody, and then you're really just multitasking on a very, you know, high-paced level. So I think it just all around, the adversity and the trials, it brings us to a better place. Coming out of this, I feel like we're probably all more astute, well-rounded, and more equipped individuals, having went through different things. And I know others here, even in this room, have went through much more than what I've went through. I've really not been exposed to a lot of the problems, but I think it's definitely, there's no way that you could look at this and call it a failure, or look at it and call it, say it could have been better, because anytime somebody increases in their own personal competencies, it's a win for at least just that person. So I think everyone here can say, for me, it was a win. So I think it's just all perspective and how we look at it. So in the perspective of, you know, individual growth and just being exposed to where the trend of the future is going, this is a win.
Yeah. And you said so many things that I was trying to, there were points that I would like to make, so hopefully I'll remember what I was thinking at the time. But you hit on so many of the things that we hope that from the internship that you all will take away from this. I think we spent a little time in our group meeting. For those of you who are not internal to the SISTU group, we do meet once a week for supervision, and to have a chance for the interns to interact with each other. And one of the things that I really emphasize is that things will go wrong. And I think, you know, getting that comfort with the unknown, that you can't control everything, and that technology is this additional layer. I mean, Tim, you pointed out that difference in place-based events. I think when, the room's too cold or you can't hear the speaker, you have someone to blame, and I feel like people are less willing to accept an excuse in those situations. I think everyone has had that hiccup with technology, and so you're kind of like, it's the technology. Oh, it allows you to kind of be okay and be a little bit more comfortable with when things go wrong, which for me, I think is a really strong skill for those who are moving into leadership, to be comfortable with sometimes things not going exactly as you plan, because life isn't that way. And I think we kind of build up this notion that if I plan it, it'll be perfect. And that's not necessarily how things work. And so I've learned managing online events, which removes that control that you get sometimes in place-based events, someone to blame, someone to accuse or get at. It makes you have to kind of take ownership and just, learn to keep moving, learn to keep rolling. And I think that's a huge, huge skill to kind of take from this. Others that you have thoughts, and there was another point, Tim, but I can't remember to what you were saying about the reflection on the event.
I would say, just to piggyback off of what everyone else was saying, that it also teaches you leadership and dependability, because you have to depend on so many other people, and like you said, they're not right there in your face, so you hand out these tasks and you just have to have faith that they're going to get them done. And working with so many different groups and individuals and personalities, you may or may not know a person's personality, their work style, but you're just giving them this task and you're holding them accountable, as well as yourself accountable on your own task that you have to complete. So I think it just makes everyone a better leader, one, because then they're like, okay, I need to get my work done. I know for myself, I tend to want to not mess up someone else's work before I mess up my own work. And then on the second hand, if you are getting into leadership role, when you give out tasks to your employees, you have to be able to depend that they're going to be able to get them done. And so often, individuals in leadership roles, are so hand-on and they micromanage so much because they just don't have that faith that their employees can get the job done. So I think it teaches you a lot when you're working on a virtual online.
Yeah, absolutely. Even if you're not the team, but you're like one of the presenters, we have to really trust that the presenters are going to do what they said, that they'll show up, they'll be accountable. I mean, that happens with any type of event. You're kind of dependent on the people to present, but I think even more so, with this, there's this aspect of like training them on the technology, them getting comfortable with that, and then presenting their information, which, if you're presenting at a typical conference, the conference kind of relies on you to manage that yourself, whereas we do kind of handhold a little bit more through the learning of the technology, which for many people is a huge barrier. Just the word, like you're going to present online, or saying you're going to present online, to some people produces anxiety. And so we have to try and not make them feel comfortable and choose platforms that will allow that. But you're absolutely right. I think working together on this project for many of you forced you to learn some group dynamic skills that you get in school, but also kind of around a project. I joke that in work there's no end date. You can't sit there and say, oh, it's over. I don't have to deal with them like you do in school. With a work assignment, you have to keep going. You're going to keep having to work with these individuals. So I think for many of you, you've had to try and figure out where your own strengths are, where are places where maybe you felt like you could grow. Hi, Larry. Thanks for joining us. Larry, if you want to just really quickly just say who you are and what committee you worked on.
Hey, my name is Larry Rice. I'm a Tuskegee intern. I'm also a U.S. grad student, and I work in the Transgender Youth Committee.
Great. He's presenters and workshops is the committee. So we're just talking a little bit about the reflection on the conference. So any other thoughts or takeaways that people would like to share, or feedback on things that other people have already shared?
I'll do a little product plug.
Okay.
Hootsuite is a lifesaver.
What'd you say?
Hootsuite is a lifesaver.
Oh, yes. And, you know, this is going to be timely, but Hootsuite just added Instagram, allowing you to be able to be on Instagram, which is going to make my work a lot easier. And I know for the Youth for Change Committee would have been a lot easier if they could have managed Hootsuite. It does make managing social media. And so for an event this big, where you're trying to manage multiple platforms and you're trying to live tweet and keep track of what people are saying, you do need kind of an enterprise solution. And, you know, no endorsement, but Sweet is the one that we use, and it's been really great. You all have been interacting on social media, and one thing I will say, just also, this is one thing I thought of when Tim was talking. We have always had the chat feature in SysG. That's part of your place. But I've noticed that in the last probably 48 hours, it's much more used, at least I see it more. Maybe you all have always been talking behind the scenes, but there's much more of like the type of interaction that I hope would come from you all working in multiple different places. And so I think just having to plan this event and creating such anxiety around it, it creates much more conversation around the work. Any other thoughts about kind of this week and your experience and the conference, the content? What about the workshops? What have you all thought about what you've learned in the workshop? Anything that you were like, wow, that I didn't know, or that's really interesting, or we should use this in my work?
So, so I watched last night the presentation by Regina from the International Rescue Committee on human trafficking, and I'm currently in global social work, and I shared one of the tools with my class today, and everybody absolutely loves it. And the tool that she put on was actually a website. It's called slaveryfootprint.org, in which you can go in, and it gives you a quick survey, and it's a beautifully done survey because it's interactive, and you basically describe your consumerism, and it tells you basically, and educates you, hey, there are these different countries that build those products, for example, and you know, they employ underwage earners, or, you know, those that would be considered slave wage earners. And, you know, I found that just absolutely intriguing. Like I said, I shared it with my global social work class at USC, and a couple of the professors said they were going to share it with other organizations, because, again, there's just a lot of educational component to it as well. So, again, I really enjoyed that discussion last night.
Great. Yeah, you know, Regina, it's always funny to reflect, because this is like full circle, because 2 years ago, Regina was you all. She was a SysG intern, and she's in an online doctoral program, and she was researching human trafficking. She works in that field, so it's not that much of a stretch, but for many of you, you work in child welfare, you work in other industries, and so she spent her time with us kind of going deeper into it and learning some things around blogging and social media and research. And now, you know, she's presenting on her own best practices and using that. So it's, you know, it's great to see that Regina has a ton of information. I think human trafficking is one of those things that people kind of know exists, but they don't think it hits home unless they, you know, interact in some way with maybe the criminal justice system or the immigration system. Those kind of you tend to think about it. But it really is something, I think one of the facts that really stood out to me when she said that in 48 hours, they're likely to be moved into either prostitution or trafficking. That's how much time you have with a runaway. And, you know, I worked in my undergrad doing my social work degree in a runaway shelter. And I know many of those kids, about 24, 27 hours is when they started entering into the shelter. And to think, like a day later, they might have been lost. And how often, you know, like kids just get angry at their parents and then go to their friends or, you know, go run away. And 48 hours is not a long time. And so it definitely, to me, made me think, what are the systems in place to stop that piece? And then just the profit standpoint, you can make the pimps are making between $150,000 to $200,000 a year off of each child. And then, like, you think about it from a commodity standpoint, guns, drugs, which are also kind of these big crimes. You sell the drugs, it's done. You sell the gun, maybe that person might sell the gun again, but it's not like a human being where every day, multiple times, you can make profit off of that. It's so challenging to stop. And once you stop one person, it's like another one can route wings because another 48 hours, somebody else will run away. So it's this huge problem that I think more youth organizations need to learn about. So I'm glad it was good for your class, Katie. Others that you enjoyed or had takeaways from the workshop?
I enjoyed Matt Calvert's presentation yesterday, especially the idea that he had with the kind of like the historical walk of the, I forget what town it was now, but I was thinking what a novel idea just to get kids within a community involved in their community, learn the history of the community, and then present it to people that might come in to visit or people that even just live like their classmates. I just thought that was a pretty novel idea that I hadn't ever thought about. And, you know, being from New England, we have, you know, towns that are, you know, older than the country itself, so it'd be a very interesting thing to do in like Boston, where you do have the Freedom Trail, but also there's a lot of other historical points and a lot of historical landmarks that if you get those youth from that area involved in that, there's no telling what they can get invested in.
Yeah, and I think it has so many different ways you could do it. So, for instance, you could do like a Black History tale and find out all the points of history that relate to, you know, one particular culture, or like Native American trail. You know, like looking at different aspects of the young people themselves, or this is what women have done in this community over the last couple of years. I think it doesn't have to just be like what they learn in the history books. You could actually build out from what your traditional schools are teaching and provide some really great context. There's some really good strategies, the whole mind mapping idea, you know, and understanding social capital. We had an intern who did present on social capital about 2 years ago, and there's just a lot of really great work around that topic that I think is very useful to youth programs. Others, very quickly, points, takeaways?
Well, I agree with Christian as far as Matt's presentation. I was really intrigued by how he said that some communities are getting the youth involved on councils, and I know I shared our experience where there was a youth position on a school board, and when I worked at the county, we also had them on the mental health board, and you know, that kind of thing, to get their perspective and their voice heard. So I think that's really important if communities, especially rural, smaller communities, really want to help grow their own so that they don't end up leaving.
Yeah, I mean, that brain drain or like that mobility issue is huge, and that can be one way for people to feel an investment in their local community. Other takeaways?
Can I just give one shout out to, sorry you're coughing right now, but to the Dannon Project. I have to say, the young ladies, the organization that represented the Kettering Foundation that participated in their project from Birmingham, Alabama, they were very eloquent. They were able to speak, to talk, to express themselves in such a way. I mean, they were great ambassadors for their organization and for the Kettering Foundation.
Yeah, you know, for the last year, I've been leading the Google Hangouts that the young people, after they lead their deliberative forums, all of the leaders that have been chosen by the Kettering Foundation, so there's about 20 of them because of the 10 cities, 2 in each city, they would have a conversation, and I'd see the change that happened over the year of them starting out very shy and not really sure. And there's a question that they ask in the Kettering training about like what it means to be a citizen, and many of them didn't feel like they were a citizen. They didn't feel like they were connected to the issues and concerns in their community. And by the end, they were involved, they were engaged, they're super energized about making a difference in their community in ways that I think surprised many of the adult intermediaries and the organizations and the community at large. And it goes to say that, like, you know, you should not count out any young person's voice. They should all be included. And that if you give them the skills, particularly around how to discuss issues and things that bother them, they'll run with it. And that's the great thing about that deliberative strategy, is that you can learn to disagree and to walk through kind of what you're doing in ways that are really, really important. So yeah, it's been great to see their growth, and they're both just running with it. They ran their deliberative forums with like administrators in their community, and so it's like all professionals and individuals that you know, they probably don't interact with on a regular basis, being that they're so young, just because of the difference in age. But it was great, and they're really great. So thanks for acknowledging that. Well, we've come to the end of our time. I do want to just talk a little bit about the workshops we have today. We have, in about 30 minutes, the Cody Turnell, another SISGE intern, will be past SISGE intern, will be presenting on engaging your youth in service learning, which connects a little bit to the topic around Matt's presentation yesterday, and builds on some of the work that she's been doing with several of you working with Service Learning Exchange, her program. In the afternoon, we have the topic that builds out of our question of the day, supporting and being a strong ally for transgender youth. Our SISGE intern team, including Larry, Tania Burton, Rebecca Cash, and Jade Vega, will be presenting on this topic, best practices, which is the real focus of the conference, just sharing strategies and things that they've found that really work, and we're looking for an engaging dialogue. So come with questions and be prepared to listen to that workshop. Again, that's at 3 p.m. Eastern. So the question today: what are some ways your organization, school, or community are making safe and welcoming spaces for LGBT youth? What have you done to empower your staff and participants to be strong allies? We didn't get a chance to talk about that in the Hangout, but you can add your response on social media, again, using the hashtag APYDCON. I look forward to seeing you there. Thank you so much for joining us for the 2015 Best Practices Conference. Thank you all for putting together such a great event. I'm excited about the final day, and it's been a pleasure to work with all of you, and I look forward to today's content. Take care. Bye-bye.